Hi everyone, good morning. Hope you're well. Thanks for joining us today. I know we're a minute late, so I apologise for that. Do me a favour, just in the messages or in the chat or in the question box, just let me know you can hear us okay and you can see us okay. You can see the slides on the screen okay, and then we can get started. I think we've got a great session, as always, lined up for you today. With a special guest, Hel Reynolds, which many of you I guess will know already. So welcome, Helen. Good to see you back on the webinar again. So today we're going to be talking about how to get leadership buy-in for your social media plans, which is a super relevant and hot topic question we often get asked by many of our clients and many different organizations. So we're going to be covering that today. If you've got any questions at any time, please just submit it into the little questions box as we're going. So Catherine, okay. Anita, okay. Joe, hello. Rachel, yep. Jem, yep. Louise, perfect. Thanks a lot, guys. Let's get into it. So I'm Dan Aston. I'm the marketing manager here at Crowd Control HQ. And as I said, Helen's joining us, who hopefully you can see on the screen. So we're going to be taking you through the next sort of 30, 40 minutes about how to get how to get leadership buy-in for your social media plans. As usual, we've just got a few slides just to welcome you to Crowd Control HQ. If this is the first time you've joined one of our webinars, fantastic. Thanks for joining us. Crowd Control HQ, we're a UK-based social media software provider, and we work with many different organizations supporting them with their social media management. So that could be your marketing and comms and PR side of social. It could be your customer service and customer care, customer experience side of things. If you have issues or requirements around social media compliance, software is all geared up to help you with that. And what makes us a little bit different, sets us apart, and really makes us stand out is that we're fully UK based, so you get extra special care and attention from our team on site or on the phone or via webinars like this. So that's what we do. If you haven't checked it out, please, request a demo, spend 30 minutes, just learn a little bit more about the software. I mentioned we work with many different organizations, so there's just a few examples, some of those organizations here on the screen. We work with public sector and private sector, everything ranging from education organizations to utilities to councils, also leisure and chartered institutions and all sorts of organizations. There's a lot more information if you want to find out more about the customers or the organizations we work with on the website, so feel free to go and check it out. So with that, hopefully with the power of the webinar software, I'm going to pass you over to Helen and she can control the slides for her very good looking slides. Sorry, just bear with me one sec. So Hel, you should have the power now. Let me know. Fingers crossed.
Right, and you're going to have to tell me if you see my whole screen, in which case I'll, let's see. I think I've got the power. I don't see slides here, so I'm just going to see if I can mess with these a bit. CS2, show main screen.
Any luck?
No.
So tell you what, if you tell me when and I'll click next.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, thank you. I've got my own assistant on the slides. That'd be great. So have you got control of slides now and I'll crack on, or do I need to give you back the control? No, it looks like you've got it.
Sorry, let's just
there we go.
I'm just asking my colleague. Yeah, we're back up and running. Yep. You say when and I'll just click through.
Thank you. And it means that you're going to have to stay awake for the whole session now.
I always am.
Yeah, thank you. No, I was not suggesting that you don't. Hello, I'm Hel Reynolds, and I'm really chuffed to be talking about this subject with you this morning because it's something that I think causes an awful lot of agony at work, actually. If you want to do the right thing, you've got great plans, and just trying to get people behind you can be a really kind of emotional process, actually. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what are the problems. So what kind of common things do people face? The reason why you should bother to try and get leadership buy-in, and then I'm going to take you through some of the tactics and some of the strategies that I've used or I've used with my clients to get that support that you need, really. You'll have to apologise for this. The slides, they're looking a bit weird because I've been messing with formatting, but what you will see in front of you is one of my cartoons, and this kind of sums it up a little bit for me, my feeling. So lots of my cartoons that I do are a little bit autobiographical. And someone is sitting with a senior manager saying, I want a bonus and I want a unicorn. And the manager says, be realistic. Okay, I want comms to be treated as a strategic function, not a post box. And then the boss says, what size unicorn do you want? And I know that I spent 10 years in local government, so my background is in councils, actually, but I obviously work with lots of different organisations now. But I had actually a really supportive team there, but it still was a bit of a process to try and get that buy-in for social media, because particularly back then when I was doing things, it was new. But even now, there are lots of reservations and lots of different reasons why people don't want to kind of get behind what you're trying to do. And if we go into the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit more about me and I suppose what I bring to the party of getting leadership buy-in. I kind of bill myself as a comms agony aunt because I no longer work in-house, so I can kind of be quite frank about some of the problems that we face as communicators. Also, lots of joy. I mean, I love the job. But also, I won Social Media Marketer Awards back last year, and you might, if you came on the last webinar, you will have seen the hangover that I was sporting the day after that.
You pulled it off well. No one would have ever known.
No. Luckily, you couldn't smell through the screen. Awards are really interesting because they work for me as a trainer and a consultant, because they help people to buy into the fact that you're an expert and you know what you do. And you know, when I was in-house, I did enter awards and win them because it was a really fundamental way of getting people to kind of go, oh, she's not just that woman in the office that says no to me all the time. She seems to have some recognizable skills. But also, I'm a creative, so I always loved to tinker and to try things out. And getting buy-in was always like a massive pain for me because I just wanted to get on and do things. I didn't want to waste my time with this, but it's incredibly important. If you want to be creative, you've got to have that solid foundation of people knowing that you know what you do, what you're doing. So we'll go into the next slide, and I've said hello again, pals, on that last slide, just because I think there's so many of you that I know, and hello, and if I don't know you, then please say hello in the comments and we'll get to know each other. But that's my background. I specialise in social media, and if we go into the next slide, already mentioned cartoons. You may have seen some of my cartoons around. These are basically about some of those problems that we get with getting buy-in. So you can have an amazing social media strategy, and then someone comes in and says, oh, hi, can you make this go viral? You know, what is it? Well, it's my strategic engagement framework for stakeholders. That's never going to go viral, mate. And so I suppose a lot of these cartoons come from that position of like understanding the barriers that a lot of us face. So if we go on to the next one, please. Some of the people that I work with work in the housing sector, and I thought this was quite interesting to really pinpoint housing comms and social media professionals. And I asked them some questions about social media, and it was really interesting to see that more than 50% of the people that I surveyed said that leaders in their organisation didn't really understand or back the work that they were doing. They just didn't feel that they had that support from leaders in the organisation. And I suppose I put that in there because this is reflective of almost every sector that I'm working with. And don't feel alone if you feel like you're battling this and you're trying to get people to take seriously what you do. Some of the most incredibly talented people that I've worked with still face these problems every day. So I just want to start from that position, really, of don't feel alone. And we'll go into the next one. Yeah, so I've covered this. Common problems, why we need that support from colleagues and other departments to get success with our social media, and a few strategies to help you to do that. So next one. Right, common problems. So if we go into the next one, I'm going to start with them and us. So I'm going to talk about everyone who's not comms, and then comms and marketing. Comms and marketing is us. Okay, so let's start with what are the problems that people face with their colleagues. So they might have bosses that are attracted to shiny things, not substance. So any of you have ever had like a director come in and say, oh yeah, I really think that we want an all singing and all dancing website, and you know that you just need to get the content right and sort out the navigation. Or they've come in and say, oh, have you heard of whatever the new social media thing is? And you go, well, yeah, I have heard of it, but we're working to a strategy. And it's just kind of a bit annoying that they're only interested in what they think looks good, and that can be really a bit of a problem. One of the things that I think is the biggest problem that I face is that the people that we work with often don't understand how people consume social media now. I do a lot of work with leadership teams, and you can't expect colleagues to know everything that we know, but sometimes just kind of picking through, you'll realize they had no idea about Facebook algorithms. They don't know that most people are actually on their phones when they're engaging with us, that they need things in much more bite-sized ways or whatever. So sometimes that's a problem of a lack of understanding of how your audiences actually want to engage with the world, not just your organization. A fun one is when you've got some kind of a boss who's got an inflated sense of expertise. So they might come in and say, I know what you guys are all about. I sent a tweet last night and it had like a hashtag on it. And, I'm well down with all of this stuff. And
everyone's an expert.
Yeah. And it's so frustrating, isn't it? Because we spent so much time crafting our work and reading things and getting involved, and, that experience that we have. And then it's very easy to just look at it and think, well, I know what that is, so I'm an expert too. And yeah, through the years, I've learned to get less defensive about this, because I'm sure I do it with other disciplines. I probably look at, like psychologists and do some pseudo psychology and think, yeah, I know all about this. And, it's human nature. And the other thing about the people that we work with that can be a problem is just stress. So it might be that they totally would be on board and they might have signed off your strategy. They might really be on your side. But when they get stressed, they're just like, I haven't got time for this. Just do it this way for now. Just do it my way. I haven't got time for this. And that can be really demoralizing as well, because you're kind of like, oh, I thought you were one of the ones that was before me, and it's quite hard. But let's not blame our colleagues on everything. Sometimes the problem is us, or sometimes some of the issues can be around us. If you've got low confidence or you have a sense of imposter syndrome, this can be really difficult for getting buy-in. You may be doing amazing social media work, but you don't feel comfortable approaching leaders in your organization to tell them what you want. Or perhaps you're doing amazing work and you don't even know it. You feel a little bit like, oh God, how have I even got this job? And I will tell you that as soon as I got a job that was managing the whole of comms and social media, I too felt like, how did I even get this job? I don't know what I'm doing. And I did know what I was doing. I was just, I just felt a bit out of my depth, and you learn that stuff. So sometimes working on your confidence is a big barrier, because you've got to get that right first. Sometimes it can be the opposite. If you're a bit arrogant and you think you know everything and they should know everything, and people should just know that I'm good. Well, just remember, you don't know everything about their jobs and they don't know everything about your job. And the other thing about us is sometimes you've just got to look at yourselves and go, is our work on social media actually strategic? Are we really adding value? Because it's going to be incredibly hard to get buy-in if you don't even know what value you're adding yourself, and if you don't feel confident about that. So there's some of the traditional common issues, and you feel free, at the end I'm going to take some questions, so feel free to kind of share anything that you're going through or you've experienced in your jobs. But let's go on to the next slide while I scratch my nose. I just have a think about this. Our success does depend on colleagues in other teams, and I know that I'm a very independent worker, and when I've got when I know what's good, I just want to go for it, and nothing will get in my way. But you just can't do it without the support from the rest of your organisation. It's just the only way to get things done. So we'll have a look at the next slide, and there we are, another slide with lots of text. Perfect. I thought actually that I'd put slide in these texts because it might be easy to text in the slides even. It might be easier for you to refer back to this later. So apologise for the not brilliant visuals in this, but you'll forgive me, I'm sure. Okay, we are in the business of building relationships. If you're using social media for your organisation, the whole point of you being there is to build relationships. You can only improve reputation by making people feel like they like you. And we've got the strategies behind us that will help us to do that. So if that's what we're good at, why don't we start to apply this to our internal work, internally, to try and get people behind us? If we can be that kind of likable, useful information provider who people just want to talk to, then use those tactics internally. If you want to have a brilliant strategy that's got all the resources you need, then you've got to build relationships with budget holders. If it's always good to do things on a budget, but you want to make sure that budget holders can provide you with whatever you need when you need it. Colleagues, keep us in touch with the organisation's needs as well. It's impossible for you to have a good strategy and amazing tactics if you're not in touch with what you're actually there to do, if you don't understand how the organisation operates. And again, those relationships will help us as we go through. The colleagues who get it will increase our volume. So this is both externally and internally. So if you've got a big kind of staff advocacy on social media scheme, then the more people who know what you're doing, the more they can share and interact with your content. But if you don't, or if that's not an issue for you, you still want to increase your volume internally. So if you've got colleagues who kind of get what you do, when they're in meetings and when they're making decisions, they're always going to repeat back what you've been saying. They're always going to keep you in mind. And that's really, really useful for you, for someone to actually do your work, to spread your messages internally. The other thing is time. Have you ever had that thing where you're working on a campaign or you're just day-to-day social media and someone comes in and says, oh yeah, I know, but I want you to put this PDF out onto Pinterest, and also I need you to do this, and if you're going to send that out, then I need to approve it, and so do my team. And all these kind of last-minute complications to what you're trying to do. When people get it and they're in from the start, you don't have that time taken away from you at the last minute that just makes everything more stressful. And generally, just your morale. Once you start to do this and get into a rhythm of building those relationships internally, then you just feel better about yourself. You've got people who go, oh, I saw your thing the other day, that was amazing. You just feel better about your work, and that's motivational. So these are the reasons to do it. And I'm sure I didn't need to tell you because you signed up to this. But yes, it is important to do it. And if we go into the next slide, here are a few things that I want you to think about. And again, this is not exhaustive. We've only got a limited time today. But I'm just going to take you through some general things that work and have worked for my clients. So I'm going to go on to the next slide, which is, if I can remember, which I can't. So I'll wait till the next slide. Know your own value, yes. Now I have touched on this earlier on around the imposter syndrome, but also it's not just about how you feel and your confidence to approach people and have conversations and send reports or whatever it is that you need to do. It's sometimes around recognizing what people know you for internally and a bit of personal brand stuff. So everything that you do is contributing to what people think about you internally. So have a little think about, how do you see yourself? What are your strengths? What do you think people say about you when you're not in the room, apart from being like incredibly gorgeous and talented? What are the things that they come to expect from you? If you weren't at a meeting and someone said, oh, Helen will do that, someone will say, oh yeah, she's really what? Start to build on your strengths and understand what people expect from you, and think about how you would describe your approach to work, because we're all unique. we might all be working on social media for an organization, but we'll be doing it in really different styles. So just begin to understand your own value and think about your personal brand at work. And it might sound a bit, what's the word? It might sound a little bit up yourself to go, oh, I'm a personal brand. But whether you like it or not, you've got an image and people become to expect certain things from you. So work on that. Start thinking about keywords that you can use, ways that you can describe yourself when you're in a meeting and say, I'm whatever, and I do this, and I do it this way. For example, I like to think that I am someone who's very creative, and I help people to feel more proud of their work and more confident about what they're doing. And that's a sentence that just gives someone an idea of my style, or the way that I approach things. It's much more interesting than saying I'm the director of a business that trains people in social media, because there's loads of those. That doesn't tell you what it's going to be like to work with me. So think about that. Next slide. Think about your reporting. So go in the comments now if you can, and I want you to kind of tell me how many of you regularly report on your social media to management, or to anyone actually, but do you do regular social media reporting, whatever format that might be? Because I know I have, through the years, worked on lots of different kinds of reporting, and I can't actually see your answers. So Dan, are there many? Have we got many of those? How many of you don't? Say no if you don't, and yes if you do.
I'm just taking a quick look. We've got we've got a variety, as you might expect, from no, not at all, to yes, monthly-ish. Send them regularly. I do. Never seen one. Weekly stand-up. Really interesting, actually.
Really interesting. And
yeah.
I think this is a really controllable part of you getting management buy-in, because there are lots of things we'll talk about now that are a little bit harder to craft. But if you consider your reports to be a piece of content, you know that this is crafted to do something that you want. So when I say a report is a piece of content, I'm just kind of gonna say what a report that isn't content is one of the things that you see where you've just used a piece of software and just gone, yeah, we've got this many more followers, we had this many engagements on Facebook, and it's just kind of lists, and it's about growth, it's about just numbers really. And that's fine, that works, that gives you a sense of progress, particularly within the team. But it really means nothing to the people that you're working for. They might tell you that they want that, but don't give that to them, because it's absolutely meaningless. What if you've had, like, there are uncontrollable things around your social media growth. Sometimes you'll just have a big flurry of followers, sometimes you get unfollowed, whatever. So I'm not saying don't include that, but really think about specific things that will add insight to your organization. So two things that I always like to include in a report are the top influencers this month. So hand picking, not using like stats to do this, but hand picking the people that you think will be interesting to your management team or leaders in your organization, and just a sentence or two to describe the interaction they had and why it was valuable or why it's important. And that, you know, particularly when you use screen grabs of their tweet or screen grabs of just their avatar and do a little bit of discussion about why that's really useful, that means so much more. That's beginning to tell a story that helps your organization to function better. Hot topics this week. That's also something that, don't assume that people are looking at the whole breadth of all of the work that you're doing and they're understanding it. You need to kind of bring that back, and it doesn't have to be hot topics that people are talking to you about. It can be that you're using some form of insight that will help to kind of look at what certain kinds of people are talking about. You know what you're doing, but the point, I think, is make it a visual report. Don't make it a spreadsheet. Don't make it a boring Word document with lots of text. Turn it into a piece of content that is, audience focused, and that audience is your leadership team. And that will give you so much more power in your organization. It will be worth doing, but it'll be quite fun to do because it gives you a good sense of what's going on as well. But the more effort you put into this, the more buy-in you get. So just think about how much of a pain this is to do by comparison to hitting a button and downloading a spreadsheet or whatever. But if the spreadsheet's not working, then it's not doing anything anyway. So try to, even if it's quarterly, try to think about some form of regular reporting when that report is a piece of content. It's an infographic or it's a visual, easy to read and understand insights document.
I think that helps bring a bit of sort of qualitative support as well to the work that you're doing, rather than the quantitative, which is often the Excel spreadsheet or the report that you talked about.
Yeah, and I know that I used to get some feedback on one of the reports that I did, and it was kind of like, oh, we didn't realise that you had such a good hold on blah blah blah, whatever the issue was.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of able to demonstrate that you know what's going on and that you're adding an extra element that is this kind of online community stuff, that like this is what they think, or this is who's influencing this group of people. That's not Big Brotherish. That's perfectly like publicly accessible data where you're just providing something very useful for people who probably, even if they're heavy social media users, aren't going to be able to pull all the things together and make the conclusions that you can. Yeah. Next one. Bring on the humble brags. Think about your internal networks, whatever they may be. Maybe you've got something like Yammer or intranets or something where you can kind of regularly contribute to staff conversations. And humble brag yourself into people's minds. So when I say humble brag, it's not like going, oh my God, the team achieved this today and I'm so proud of them. It might be something like saying, let's say you've worked on a campaign or some kind of one single social media post, and that involved another member of staff, so their expertise was involved, or you filmed a chief exec or whatever it is. Talk about the result and make it fun. So an example that I've used in this slide, which I can't quite read because it's quite small on here, but the gist of it is that feeling when you realise that your chief, so I'll give you the example. I've just filmed a chief exec and put it onto social media, and lots of people said that was really useful, thank you. So you might say, right, we just did a great video and it had however many views and comments, which is not as good as a humble brag, which is a little graphic of someone looking chuffed, saying that feeling when your chief exec gets it and 15 people are now signed up to our blah blah newsletter. I don't know, I'm kind of making up a fake example, but it is just switching it from making sure people know the results of that thing, making it look fun and kind of off the cuff, but not just saying we're good, talking about the outcomes and thanking the people who helped you to get there. That is a really useful way to just make that person who you're thanking feel a little bit like that was worth the mental barrier of taking part in a social media campaign. Because if you're using any of your staff members and they're visible in some way, that takes a big leap of, trust that they're not going to get shouted at or look stupid or whatever. So make sure you give them a lot of fuss and thanks. Next one. Okay. Repeat. So internally, I've used this, and it's a really old stat from this trust barometer research that happens every year, but I still think it's really relevant. People are skeptical about just everything that happens in the world, actually, but particularly staff feel a bit like, oh, not another initiative, or oh, whatever. People need to hear information 3 to 5 times before they believe a message. So don't feel like you are repeating yourself too much. Like, just repeat everything. Have a key message. Always say something. Always be a certain way. And don't feel like it's too much, because actually most people haven't got the mental energy to really listen to you the first time, or they forget because they've moved on to something else. And I think it's just that thing of fear of being the person that repeats yourself over and over again stops people from actually really getting the value from what you're saying. Much better than someone says, I've heard that already, all right, than someone goes, no, I didn't see anything about it. Because that you put it in the newsletter, or you did whatever you did. I had this so much of, I put every single channel internally to let people know what I wanted them to know, and they go, no, I didn't see it. What about in the staff newsletter? No, I read it, but I didn't see that. And it's just like, fine, we haven't got time to read everything. To bombard people. Next. The power of FOMO. Now, this is an interesting one, and this is a slide suggestion that I got from one of my lovely communications creatives in my Facebook group, because I was asking about, you know, what tips have you had around getting social media buy-in? Trying to make the people that you're talking to and convince feel a little bit like they're missing out. And I think there's kind of two types of leaders in your organizations. There'll be the early adopters or the laggards. So early adopters will probably get behind you anyway, and you don't need to use this tactic on them as much. But if some people are a bit more risk averse, then you might want to occasionally send an email saying, hey, I've just seen that our competitor, whoever it is, or I've just seen that another similar organisation to us has done this amazing campaign. I think it's really good because of blah, blah, blah. What do you think? And that kind of stuff will make them start to think, oh, everyone's doing it except for us. And, you know, a lot of the time I worked in conversations of focusing not on what's the risk if we do it, but focusing on the risk of what is the risk if we don't do it. Here is what we're missing out on. And that can be a really useful thing. Quick anecdote. When I worked in a council, I was trying to get the IT department to give all staff access to social media as part of a big kind of program that I was doing. And the guy from IT was like, okay, well, you'll have to give me a business case to kind of back up what you're saying there and demonstrate that you need this access for all staff. And I don't know where the guts came from, or the cheek, depending on how you see it. But I did respond with a, well, actually, could you give me a business case on why we can't do it? Because this has been, you know, I've got support from the leadership team here, and I really want to make this happen quickly. So if you can get me that report by, you know, next couple of months, then we'll revisit. But otherwise, great. I'm looking forward to reading it. And it was just kind of switching it around. Don't you be asking me to do a business case. You do a business case. Which is not always the best way to win friends. But in this case, I was on a mission. But do try and think about, like, just flipping it sometimes. Instead of always trying to persuade people of why you should do it, try to think about arguments about what will happen if you don't do it. Next one. Now, this one worked brilliantly for me. It worked all the time. Develop an elevator pitch and keep it like a live elevator pitch. So I hate saying elevator because we say the like lifts in the UK, don't we? But if I say lift pitch, it doesn't make any sense. But here's how I did it. I would look at what I was trying to achieve. So we had a kind of a loose strategy at the time. It wasn't a real detailed strategy, but I knew what I wanted to achieve, and I knew there were certain things that I wanted to happen. So I would just do an A4 visual piece of content, like I was talking about, with a couple of, here are key people, here's something that I've seen internally that's brilliant that I want someone to, you know, a chief exec or a leader to know about, and just tell a bit of a story in an A4 kind of PDF. And then have it on my iPad. So then when I'd see someone in a lift, I'd be like, hey, can I just have 1 minute while you're going down there? So, I mean, literally, I did this in a lift once, but it can be anywhere. You don't have to be in a lift. It's just when you see someone at the end of a meeting or whatever. And again, with the confidence thing, I was never that confident that I'd be able to say what I need to say in a convincing way without going into a meltdown of like that. And this was really helpful for me to have this iPad there. And I'd go, can I just show you this? And then you've got your kind of your bullet points of what you're taking them through. I thought this was interesting, and you might like to see it. So what I tend to put in there would be an initiative that you're working on, or planning to work on. It's important because, and you know, if you can link that to something that you think the person you're trying to persuade feels is important, even better. Here's what success will look like, especially for you. And this is what we need from you if we want that to happen. And it's like a little sales pitch, really. But if you've got the time to do this, and sometimes, you can think, oh, I've had this and I've not bumped into anyone for ages. Well, they just start to like hang around in places where you can do this in the canteen anyway. Because you've got your iPad on you, it's fine, it looks a bit natural, but it's definitely a way of getting what's in your head out there and getting people to really see why they should do it. And works a treat, I can tell you.
Yeah, really like this idea. It's not something I've heard before, but we all have, like you said, at the end of a meeting, you can always grab someone for 1 or 2 minutes just to like flash in front of them what you've put together, and then that's how you get more time with them, I guess.
Yeah, really, and I don't know if, I think that you're a real good person who can just kind of say what you're thinking at the time and be brilliant, whereas I've got to think about things. And if you put me on the spot, sometimes I just lose a blank, and then I'll walk away thinking, I should have told them that, and if I'd have said this, then they would have thought that, or whatever. And this is kind of a way of just making you feel a bit more in control when you're not always the most confident in those situations. And I think some people are just weirdly intimidating. I like to think that, look, I'm as good as anyone, but some people have just got an air that's incredibly intimidating. And if you can just shove something under their nose, and then they're not even looking at you in the eye when you're having a conversation, again, it just takes some of that heat out of a situation of getting that buy-in. Because a lot of people think buy-in is writing a strategy and getting it signed off, which it is. But that's one small part of it. A lot of the rest of it is around continual persuasion and relationship building. Yeah.
Nice.
So, next one. Now, did I say repeat yourself? I put the slide in again. Repeat yourself. You can't forget this now. Yeah, next slide. Repeat yourself. The power of FOMO. Next slide. Yeah, next slide.
There we go.
Okay. I had a really interesting conversation on LinkedIn yesterday, actually. And someone was talking about in their organization a specific thing that they wanted to get done, but how difficult it can be when part of your organization is really hooked on it. So let's give an example. I'll give not that example, but I'll give an example of, let's say you regularly do a live Twitter chat, and you're beginning to notice that this live Twitter chat doesn't get much engagement, and the amount of work that you put into it isn't really worth the engagement that you get back or the results that you get from it. But someone in your organization who might be quite powerful goes, no, that's amazing, we have to do that, we have to do it because people expect it now. And there's this kind of thing, it's my pet project, or you'll always get certain things that people want to do and it's not the right thing for your organization, or even if it's okay, that it's not a priority and it's taken up too much time. So sometimes you'll have specific things. It's not like getting general buy-in. It's about this particular thing of, I just want to stop doing this thing, or I just want us to do this thing, but there's a problem internally. So it made me think about the things, I'll probably end up turning this into a blog post, but it made me think about the things that different tactics I've used through the years to convince people that they shouldn't do something or that they should do it. So in this case, we'll think about the shouldn't do it. So we don't want to do this live Twitter chat anymore. It doesn't fit in with our strategy. It's not reaching the right audiences, whatever. So you can do a bold replacement. So doing something that takes less time and bill it as being the next new thing. So let's just say you just tweet a video. Instead, you just tweet a video about the subject and tell people that this is the future, video is the future. So actually we're replacing this with something much better, and you're going to see amazing things from this. So you can do a bit of, not exaggeration, but just boldly going in there and going, we're not doing that anymore, we're doing it this way. And really upselling the replacement that you're doing, even if it's actually not taking you much time at all, and it's just kind of a get this out of the way thing. Or you can do a gradual replacement. So let's say you've got the tweets going on, this Twitter chat, and you can say, right, well, we'll carry on doing that for a couple of months. And at the end of it, we're going to take the best tweets and turn it into a Twitter moment, or we're going to turn it into a blog post. And after a while of doing that, you might really push sending that to a particular influential audience. In this case, I've used like journalists or something, and then tell your audience who loves the live Twitter chat, people are absolutely loving the summary. I think they love the summary more, actually. We're going to experiment, and this is always a good one. We're going to do a pilot. So they don't feel like they're losing the thing forever. You say, we're going to experiment with this pilot and we'll come back and look at the findings afterwards. So we're not getting rid of it completely, don't get me wrong, but gradually you just kind of eke them into seeing this other way as a more effective way. So that is another tactic, the gradual replacement. Next one. Now, you might think I would say this because I am a consultant, but here's what I note all the time. So get an extra voice in to just do training with whoever it is that you're trying to influence, to tell them that the thing that you're saying is the right thing. And I do this all the time, but I used to find, in fact, actually, I used to find it really annoying. So I felt like I knew what I was doing, I had a mission. And then sometimes you get these PR consultants coming in and they'd say everything that I'd been saying for the last 6 months. And then everyone would be like nodding, yeah, that's great. Like, I've been saying this. I've been repeating it. I had it on my iPad. What is wrong with you? But after a while, you become a little bit like a piece of furniture when you're in an organisation for a certain amount of time, that people just forget that you're really good at what you do, or you might have had one interaction with them where they didn't think that you were like top form. So they just lose a little bit of heart. And sometimes a consultant can seem really snazzy because like, oh, they charge a lot and they seem to have this, they seem to have blah, blah, blah. And the consultant can just do the work for you. You just kind of unlock that thing that you're trying to get done. Don't take it personally. It's human nature to think that the mysterious, glamorous person who they don't know and see every morning, half dead from getting up at 6 or whatever. They just think that the consultant's got more cachet, I suppose. The other thing to do is redress the balance. So let's say you hate the live tweeting and you just think, oh, it gives a really bad impression of us. It's just kind of broadcast, or no one's interested in that and they're going to think badly of us. Well, just try and do less of it while you're doing it. Don't put as much out, and try to put some more engaging, fun, useful content out. So just redress the balance. Go, right, well, I don't really like this, but I can't cancel it at the moment. So I'm just going to replace it with lots more of this, or not replace it, but balance it out with more good stuff. And once you start to do that, you can begin to present some evidence of saying, well, these social media posts get lots of results. These don't. So you've got some real kind of hard comparison to make.
Just on the extra voice topic, Hel, I think it's really interesting because we see this as well with organisations. Sometimes you just want that sort of peace of mind that you're not the only one that sort of thinks that's the right thing to do, and that's where it can be really helpful to get another opinion, from yourselves or from ourselves. We find that quite often.
Oh, and I find it as well. I mean, there's a million courses and like freelancers even I'll bring in who just make me go, oh, thank God, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Sometimes you go, what am I paying for? I knew this already, but you didn't. You didn't that kind of extra support, that extra angle on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so in summary, well, not in summary, I suppose, but with this in mind, thinking of everything that we've spoken about now, don't lose heart, because you won't win every battle. So lose some battles and win a war. Occasionally, if someone has got a lot of influence and they're really on a mission or they're really stressed, it's just easier to just go with what they want. But you'll win a war by consistently trying to always suggest that the right thing is the most beneficial to the people that you're talking to just win them over. It's like relationships. You can have arguments with people, but all the other stuff contributes to, on Valentine's Day, love. So you don't have to always be getting your own way and winning it, but you'll win the war eventually if you consistently use some of these tactics and try and do the right thing. A last little one, have a brilliant strategy, get it signed off. I mentioned this earlier on. that's the obvious thing, isn't it? And if you would like some help with that, I'm your woman. I do workshops on how to write social media strategy, and a big part of that is about getting that buy-in as well. So if you want some help, then you know where to come. And the next one.
Here we go.
Questions.
So any questions, thoughts or feedback, please send them in. If you don't leave just yet. We're going to make a little announcement in sort of 5 minutes time after we've run through a few questions, something we're super excited about. We've been working on with Helen in partnership. So hold on for a few minutes to find out about that. So I'm just going to take a quick look, see if we've got any new questions coming in. So I'm just going to whiz through some of these, Helen. A lot of positive feedback, not necessarily questions. Brilliant session, many useful tips. Thank you. How do you persuade people into that report approach as hours are fixed, where social stats slot in, less creative freedom? Okay, so I guess you've got kind of a template that you have to use for reporting. So you kind of fix, limited with how much like extra creativity I guess you can put into like sharing the report.
Just carry on doing them and make a good one as well. And you might not be able to do that as frequently as you want, but just say 4 times a year I'm going to do an engaging one as well, and bill it as an extra. But you'll end up finding that people go, and that was the really useful thing. Well, that's the thing they'll remember. But yeah, if you've got a specific kind of structure for doing things, and it might be aligned to KPIs and things like that, that's fine. You don't have to replace it, but definitely do it also, or just add it to the top as a little
bit of extra ammunition, extra.
I think even work, but it's it is definitely worth it.
I would agree. When leaders ask for proof of ROI, what metric do you start with? Interesting. Are there, say, 3 killer metrics that you can always start with? This may be a question that's impossible to answer unless you know the specific comms goals, but I thought I'd ask in case there is a good one. So that was my first thought, is actually, if you know what you were trying to achieve, that influences, I guess, the metrics or the outcomes for the ROI. What do you think, Hal?
Yeah, I think the same. And I think you can't measure everything. So if someone's, I suppose I would just reverse engineer it. What is it that they want you to demonstrate? And right from the off, like you say, have some really clear goals where you know what you're going to measure from the off. I wish that there was an easy answer that was catch-all for this. With evaluation, you can, like, really it's about picking the right option. So once you've understood what everything means and how you can use it, then you can just cherry pick the things that will help you to do it. But I'm afraid it's not that easy.
Yeah, I would say it's a tough one. It depends is that default answer, but yeah, it does.
No magic one, I'm afraid.
Okay, interesting one. Our leadership team are concerned about negative engagements, probably not alone in that, from the public, and also out of hours engagements. Concerns are that posts are in public pages and are not on a managed page. So worried about the use of social media or growth of this. That's a very common concern. I guess you probably see a lot of this as well, Hal, but the thing they have to, not that they have to realize, I guess that the thing that you have to sort of help them understand is those negative comments can be going on anyway. And the most important thing is that you can see them so that you're able to respond to them and help sort of bring people around if there is a bit of negativity. You shouldn't ignore them, for sure. What do you think, Hal? Yeah,
I'm 100% behind that. And I think sometimes it's helping them to see a little bit around their own attitude to organisations, that you don't feel positively about every organisation. And if someone's sounding off and being negative, there's often some really good reasons for why. A, you're not a perfect organisation. B, that person might have had a horrible day for whatever reason, and they just sound, they just need a release, and that's okay. They're humans. Maybe they did have a terrible experience with you, and maybe it happened 7 years ago. And we just have to think about our own feeling towards brand loyalty and think, as soon as you have a negative experience with someone, it's really, you know, it takes a lot to win them around. So just kind of getting people to realize that the more you interact with people, the more you will end up winning them around. But it's not as easy as just transactional helping them with whatever their query is, because we're human beings with emotions, and if they feel let down, or they felt let down by a similar organization, they're just going to assume you're the same. And this is all about trust building. And you can talk about ROI, but there's an interesting thing. Now, I'm not a big fan of, I am in some ways a big fan of Gary Vaynerchuk. Other ways I'm not. But he talks about telling people, like, what's the ROI on your mother? Like, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my mother. There are a billion things about my personality and my life that wouldn't have happened without my mother. But how am I going to measure that? How am I going to, like, all the arguments we've had don't take away from the relationship that's incredibly healthy. And I think sometimes there's a bit of a program of education around, this is just the way that things are now. We need to get harder skinned at dealing with negative things. And we did do a webinar on this, didn't we? A little bit about the managing negative.
We did actually, yeah. So if you're on the Crowd Control HQ website, go to webinars, you'll be able to find it there. We did a whole session on how to handle negative comments if you are receiving them, or you think there's a risk that you might get those. Yeah, certainly worth checking out. Helen, I'm just conscious of time, so we have some more questions. We can try and respond to those offline because I'm just conscious of the time. Yeah. Also, guys, if you can also tweet us after this session, just tag at Hel Reynolds and at Crowd Control HQ, and we can get back to you that way as well if you've got some other little questions we haven't had a time to take a look at. And thanks so much for sticking around. Hopefully on the screen, this is what we're super excited to announce.
Yeah.
We've been working super hard on some brand new content to help you become a bit more confident and like learn more, like increase your knowledge about some of the things you probably wish you already knew how to do when it comes to social media for your organization. And we are going live next month in March, but we're opening up the page so you can be the first to find out when lessons become available. So it's totally free. Go and check it out. If you go to crowdcontrolhq.com/academy, fill in the form, you'll be on the list and you'll be the first to know when the lessons go live. If you've got any feedback on it, obviously tweet us, we'd love to know. And hope you enjoy it. It was super exciting to work with Helen on it. You know, we get such a good response and a real sort of community built around some of the content that we're sharing. So people were asking for more, so we've put together more for you.
We're doing loads of stuff on there, aren't we? We're doing things like how to write better copy. What else have we got in there? Strategy.
Everything from strategy, to copywriting, to some tips for the individual networks. What else have we got? Evaluation and reporting. Tons and tons of things. I think we've got 14 different lessons which are all coming soon. So go and sign up now.
14 on February the 14th.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
We launch it today because we love you. And you're going to love it.
It's all come together. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining us today. Like I said, if you've got any questions, any other feedback, just tweet us. We'd love to hear from you. So till the next time, take care. Have a great Valentine's Day. Thanks so much, Helen.
Thank you. It's been great. Lovely to chat to you.
The great one. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.